And joining us right now is former Clinton advisor and Stagwell Group president, managing partner, Mark Penn. Mark, good to see you.
Morning.
2020 is on. The Dems have, what, 40 candidates? It's true. There are 40 people that are running.
And right now, Joe Biden is about the best thing we have as a front runner. Generally, in this poll and others, in about 30, 33%. You know, generally, to be a real front runner, you need to be in the 40s. And, you know, Bernie Sanders, pretty close behind him. Bloomberg saying he might spend $1 billion or more if he gets in.
Well, he already spent. How much did he spend? He gave the Democrats $120 million.
He spent $100 million on a New York City mayoral race.
All right. Okay. You think he has a shot?
I think if he spends $1 billion, he has a shot. I think the four Bs, you know, between Biden, Bernie, Beto, and Bloomberg, all have shots. And remember, they didn't have Hillary in that horse race, but she right now even polls #1 with women and has a 75% approval with Democratic voters.
Is that possible?
Is that possible, Mark Penn? One thing I wanted to say about President Trump, and get your reaction to that, is that whether people would vote for President Trump and for re-election. If you look at the results among Trump voters from 2016, definitely and probably re-elect Trump, you add those together, 84%, which is actually a higher percentage in those two categories than in January of 2018. So his voters are dug in for him.
His voters are dug in, and I would say generally, if a president is 44 and below, pretty tough re-election. 44 to 48, 50-50, over 48, 75%. President Trump has just not made an effort, I think, to get over 50%. He's stuck at his base, which is 46, which worked last time because of the Electoral College, but won't be enough to get reelected.
But, Mark, back to Maria's point about the 40 candidates in the Democratic pool, so many of those candidates are going to pull the party further and further left in this kind of primary process. That plays to the president's advantage, doesn't it? I mean, you're going to see a leftward move more here than you've seen in any year past.
It does, only if the president figures out a way how to court the centrist voters. If the center voters get left in the middle, they'll have to choose between, once again, two candidates they don't like, and that is the most volatile electorate.
So how does the House leadership play into this? Because House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi has agreed that if she becomes Speaker, she will only serve for 4 years. She did a deal, which Tim Ryan announced yesterday, that they are now term limits in place. This plan is a compromise between the establishment and this wave of new House members elected during the midterms. Will it work?
Plus, she agreed to problem solvers rules to allow compromise bills with the support of 290 members to get a vote up or down. And that could really be something that breaks the logjam here if those rules get used.
I'm wondering on that poll, if we could talk about Beto O'Rourke for a moment. He raises and spends $80 million, loses the Texas Senate race. He's now right in there with the leading contenders. I think it's because he's so authentic.
James, it's because he looks like a Kennedy. He's so cute. That's why I'm going to give him some money. I hope he wins.
Well, look, I think what it says is Democrats are looking for a new generation candidate. And even if right now they've got only one person who comes on strong as a new generation candidate, and that's really what they want. Do they want another? You know, do they want somebody else in their 70s and approaching 80s for their next presidential candidate? I don't think so.
So he could win, or he could.
You know, who knows with 40 candidates? I'd give him, look, being president is a low probability profession. Who thought Donald Trump was ever going to be president?
Did the cabal of people at the top of the FBI and the DOJ get away with it?
Yes.
Is that what we're saying then? They got away with it?
Well, look, what we saw the last couple of days is incredible. Michael Cohen basically doesn't pay taxes for millions of dollars and bilks corporations out of millions of dollars. And then, to go against the president, they get him to plead to crimes of campaign finance that are not crimes because they're personal payments. There are 268 settlements by people in Congress, most of whom would have been during the election year. I don't see paddy wagons showing up here to arrest people in Congress.
That's incredible.
This is absurd, the trick that they've been able to play and implicate the president.
How about the trick they played on General Michael Flynn and how they destroyed his life? And there's an op-ed in the Journal today taking aim at Jim Comey and his misleading of the FBI, the Flynn entrapment. A court filing shows the ugly tactics employed by James Comey's FBI. It says Comey, along with Andy McCabe and Peter Strzok, were unfair in handling the questioning of Michael Flynn. The editorial board calling for transparency, saying if he does nothing else, President Trump has an obligation to former aides like Michael Flynn and to the public to declassify and disclose the FBI documents related to the FBI's Russia probe. Mr. President, when are you going to declassify? What do you think?
Well, I think the very same trick here. They actually got Flynn on failing to register for some lobbying, along with his son. They changed the plea to this ridiculous plea of lying in which he was entrapped in order to make it fit into the Russia narrative. Now, interestingly, the judge said, after these filings, said, let me take a look at this before I pass sentencing, because maybe some adult will come in here and stop these prosecutors from really making a mockery of American jurisprudence.
Terrible. Yep. It's really, Jerry Nadler was very clear. He's shutting the investigation down.
Well, you know, the president and the new attorney general are going to have a decision, which is whether to appoint a special counsel to investigate the FBI and the Justice Department and what went on here. Look, with Sally Yates pulling out the Logan Act and then the FBI sending people over to interview Flynn when they already had the transcript, they already knew the answers to the questions, and his actions were perfectly legal. That's what's
this is engineered by the two FBI people who've been fired for misconduct. Right. Fooling him, misleading him, deceiving him about what was happening and why the agents were coming over, the circumstances and how he should be prepared to respond, et cetera. But I'm wondering, does the House, without having the collusion goods, still find a way to impeach? Or do you think they have to back up here?
I don't know. Right now, it's looking like 1998 all over again. Okay? They started out over here. They wound up with payments to avoid disclosures of sexual matters, and we're back to 98.
But here's what they learned, the Democrats did. They get subpoena power in January. They're going to try and embarrass the president and make sure that he doesn't get reelected. But the emerging thinking is that they never move to impeach him, that they just try to smear him.
Because there's nothing
the next
there.
2 years.
We'll see what we'll see what comes out. We'll see. But
look, they're sure on 67 senators. That's why right now it just looks like 98 all over again. I'd be surprised at this point with the way Mueller's lined up his report and all these pleas, whether or not the Democrats, don't vote for impeachment. At this point, I'd grade it 60-40. I think you're right. If they don't, it'd be better for the Democrats because I think they could win on the issues, as your poll shows.
When will the Mueller report be out? Do you know?
I don't know, but I don't see how he goes another 60 days without his report.
Okay. Within the next 60 days. Mark, it's great to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Mark Penn there.